Hello fellow Hunters of the Blue and welcome to my channel and welcome to Heavy Contrast. Heavy Contrast is a series where I try to paint one miniature to the highest standard possible using just contrast paints and highlights, and in today's video I will be painting one of the absolutely amazing new Terminators from the much awaited Leviathan box that Games Workshop has kindly sent me. Of course I had to choose a chapter for him, and of course it had to be the best one, Dark Angels. Go Deathwing! Let's get cracking. As you can see, we are starting from a base coat of white. In my case this is Corax White. I happen to have some Corax White sprays bottles that I very much cherish and that I will probably cry like a baby when they are gone. If you don't have Corax White, you have several options. You can do a layer of Corax White over the White Scar spray, or you can just use White Scar. It's going to make a little bit of a difference in the finish, very minimal, but it's not going to affect any of the steps of this tutorial. For our first step, what I want to do is apply all over the bone armor a 1-to-1 mix of Skeleton Horde and Contrast Medium. I have a video on how to apply contrast to the highest level possible, especially over very flat panels, so go watch that video if you are interested. I'm not going to care at all for any of the parts that are not going to be bone. If I go over them, so be it. The most important bit here is you get the bone armor as smooth as possible. Our layer of Skeleton Horde is now dry, and I'm really happy with it, but there are a couple of places where I would like a little bit more shading that just didn't occur naturally. So what I'm going to do is apply the same shade again in a more focused way. I'm just going to apply this in the places that I believe should get a little bit more shading. I might have to feather it out to create a smoother transition, but that shouldn't be much of a problem. And with that extra bit of shading, he is looking rather good. And I want to add just that extra bit more shading with a recessed shade of Fireslayer Flesh. This will help define all of the features that are on top of the armor and recessed into the armor. It will also help tinting a little bit the shadows to give them a more interesting look. With our shading now done, it's time to do, well, something different than what I usually do. I usually just start highlighting the armor and then do the rest of the details, but in this case, because it's a really light colored armor, I want to paint all of the joints first, just so if I mess it up, which I probably will, I can just fix it using some Screaming Skull, which is basically the perfect fit for our color. You can also use this to correct any mistakes that you did using the contrast paints. What I've done off camera is base coat all of the areas that will be black using Mechanicus Standard Grey, and on top of that I'm going to do a layer of Black Templar. I'm going to be as careful and as precise as possible with this step. But again, if I mess it up, which is something that will probably happen, I will just fix it using a Screaming Skull. Hey, matey! I have the most outrageous secret to tell you about my boss. Are you sure this is the safest way of telling me about this? I would be afraid anyone can hear us. Relax. Who's going to be listening, huh? The wet palette? Not sure. He has a blue lead after all. Well, I guess you are right. Ooh, that is so juicy. That's what she said. Dude, you are hilarious. Oh no, look! A malicious hacker. Oh no! Who we gonna call? Surfshark VPN. Oh look! It's the Surfshark VPN heroes. We are safe. Don't worry, little goblins. I will protect you from the nefarious hacker with my impenetrable Surfshark VPN shield. No hacker can harm you. if I'm here? Look how big the shield is! And what do you do with the massive shovel, other Surfshark hero? Glad you asked, Jimmy. You know when you are in another country and can access all of the shows that you love? Yes, I hate that. Of course you do, Billy. Of course you do. That's why I will smack your IP address so hard with my shovel, BAM! Right in the protocol, that it will think it's in the country you choose. Imagine all of the content you will be able to watch, Billy. It's beautiful, Surfshark VPN hero. Thank you, Surfshark VPN heroes. You saved us. Hey, is that Edward the First? Yes, I am, little critter, and I'm here to make you an amazing offer. If you click the link in the description and use the code juanhidalgo in your checkout, you will now have 3 months of Surfshark VPN for free, plus a great offer on top of that. Oh, if only I had Surfshark VPN, the Scots wouldn't be independent now. What? They still aren't? Ha! 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 Thank you, Surfshark VPN. With that step done and all of the mistakes fixed, it's now time to edge highlight the model, and for this I'm going to use a Screaming Skull, and I'm going to apply this mostly on the darker sections. It will be a thick edge highlight, and you will see that at some point this edge highlight will basically blend with the color underneath. For example, in this case, it's about here. And in that case, I'm going to basically stop edge highlighting, it makes no sense. On top of the edge highlight, if you feel that some areas are not as smooth as you would like them, for example here I have like a little bit of a dark patch, I'm going to smooth that out using a glaze of a Screaming Skull. I'm going to thin my paint to a rather thin consistency, as you can see there, and I'm just going to glaze this. Remember, one of the keys with glazing is having very little paint on your brush. It's one of the reasons that people have troubles with it, is that just they have too much paint. Not about how thin it is. I can glaze with paint that is basically just water. The key is how little paint do you have. If you have too much paint loaded on your brush, it's going to go everywhere. Our next step of highlight is going to be a 1-to-1 mix of Screaming Skull and pure white. This will be our thin edge highlight stage, and I will do it all over. Remember, this has to be as thin as you can make it. And now for the final highlight on the armor, I'm going to do pure white. And for the lower sections, I'm just going to do a dot of this at the very corners, just like that. And for the upward facing edges, I will probably extend it a little bit. The only thing left to do is, well, finish edge highlighting the whole model. Yes, even the back. With the bone armor finished, it's now time to finish the undersuit, and for this I'm going to start highlighting it with Thunderhawk blue. You can go with a neutral grey for this if you prefer it, but I do think that adding a cold grey to this super warm armor makes it more attractive. I'm just picking all of the ridges very carefully with Thunderhawk blue. For our next highlight, I'm going to use Fenrisian grey, and I'm going to do the same highlight, but just more concentrated towards the center of each shape. And for the final highlights, I'm going to take Ulthuan grey and just do a little dot in the middle of the Fenrisian grey highlight. I won't do this in the flat section on his back, just on the curved part of the armor. After finishing off all of those details, I took the time to base coat all of the rest of the details with Corax White, except for the wax on the seals, which I did with Mechanicus Standard Grey, and it's now time to apply all of the contrast layers on top of all of that. I'm going to start with the chest eagle, and for this I'm going to use a mix of 1 part Warp Lightning and 1 part Dark Angels greens. For the wax on the purity seals, I'm going to use Sigval Burgundy. For the grey details of the armor, I'm going to use Basilicanum Grey. For the parchment of the purity seals, I'm going to use a mix of 1 part wildwood and 4 parts contrast medium. This will give us a different looking parchment than the rest of the armor. And finally, for the red details, including the bolter casing, I'm going to use a mix of 1 part Blood Angel's Red and 1 part Flesh Tearer's Red, my favorite red combination. Once this is fully dry, I will paint the symbol on his bolter in the same way I will do the grey details on the armor. With all of the contrast layers now dry, it's time to start highlighting them, and I'm going to start with the green eagle on his chest, and for this I'm going to start with a mix of 2 parts Skarsnik green and 1 part Caliban green. If you prefer the brighter official color scheme for the green, just use Warpstone Glow and Mood green, but because I want to try a more muted green, I went for this color palette. The next highlight is going to be pure Skarsnik green, and I will just do the same edge highlight I did in the previous step, but this time taking less space. And for our final highlight, I'm going to do a 1-to-1 mix of Skarsnik green and Dawn yellow. These have to be just very small dots at the very corners of things. Next I'm going to paint the grey, and for my first highlight I'm going to do a thin edge highlight of Administratum grey. With such small details you can just jump straight into the thin edge highlight stage without having to bother with a thick edge highlight. And now for the final highlight on the grey details, I'm going to use Ulthuan grey. I'm just going to do the same highlight but more concentrated towards the highlight points. With the grey details finished, I'm going to do the purity seals, and I'm going to start highlighting the parchment using a 1-to-1 mix of Rakarth flesh and Pallidwood flesh. For the final highlight on the parchment, I'm going to use Pallidwood flesh, and I'm just going to do a very thin edge highlight with this. I said that was going to be the last highlight, but I think I'm going to do another one using pure white. Just the same edge highlight I did with Pallidwood flesh, but more concentrated towards the edges. And to finish off the parchment, I'm going to do some squiggles to simulate the text printed on it, and for that I'm just going to use pure wildwood. To finish off the purity seals, I'm just going to highlight these wax using Pink Horror. I'm going to take advantage of the Pink Horror's natural transparency to deposit more paint in some places than others, just by virtue of leaving more paint there, and going several times over certain areas to create opacity. And to finish off the purity seals, I'm going to do a final highlight on the wax with a Screaming Skull. This will be just very small dots in the areas where more pink horror was deposited to create the sense of shine. With that done, I'm going to paint the red casing on the bolter, and I will leave the lenses to the very last step of the model. First of all, I'm going to do a thick edge highlight using Wild Rider Red. Our next highlight on the red is going to be Taulight Ochre. As before with the green, I don't want this red to be absolutely overpowering in saturation, so I'm going to highlight it with this ochre instead of oranges. And now for the final highlight on the bolter casing, I'm going to do a 1-to-1 mix of Dawn Yellow and Taulight Ochre and just do very small dots of this in the corners. With that done, it's time to paint the metal, and I just base coated using Iron Hand Steel, and now I'm going to apply a mix of 1 part Black Templar and 3 parts Contrast Medium to all of the steel details. With the wash mostly dry, I'm going to go back to Iron Hand Steel to re-establish my mid-tones and to give the steel a shinier look. With that highlight done, we're going to move into the last highlight for the metal, and that will be a Stormhost Silver. And we're just going to do a very thin edge highlight with this. With all the steel now highlighted, there is only just one detail left to paint, and that is the lenses. And I left all the lenses for the last step because, well, we have one here with a metal rim surrounding it, and it's easier to paint the lens after the metal ring is painted than to try to paint the metal ring without damaging our work. And the first highlight is going to be, as before, Wild Rider Red. Here in the eyes, I'm applying it towards the front of the eyes. And on the lens, I'm going to apply it towards this bottom left corner. Our next highlight is going to be Taulight Ochre, and same, I'm going to apply it even smaller in this corner and in the front of the eyes. And our next highlight is going to be a 1-to-1 mix of Taulight Ochre and Dawn Yellow. This is just going to be a small dot here at the front of the eyes, same here for the lens. And to finish it all off, just 1 dot of white in the opposite corner of our highlights. I just love the Deathwing. It's one of the coolest color schemes in the whole of Warhammer 40k. Look at him spin like a total badass. I'm actually thinking of making a video about freehanding checker patterns and the Dark Angels logo on him. Let me know in the comments below if you would like that. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget that if you like my videos and want to help me make them, you can follow me on social media. You have the links to all my social media in the description below and in the pinned comment of this video. Share and like this video, but most importantly, there is Patreon and channel members. Patrons and members allow me to do all the cool videos that I want to make, and most importantly, they allow me to release them all for free here on YouTube. Perks includes access to an amazing Discord community full of lovely people, early access to some of the videos, and now also private one-on-one online tutorings. You have 2-tier options for those, 45 minutes and 3 hours a month. They are filling fast, so if you want to have a private tutoring with me, don't hesitate and join now. Help me and my family and join the list of the coolest persons in the planet, including Flo, Janner, Mark Bellencoop, Terry Denham, Robert Smith, Terrinosaur, Jose Navarro, Heather Amster, Paul Goodwig, Stefan Farniate, Giovanni Constanza, Biam, Howard Holdville, Thomas Ustergaard, Painting Peter, Javi Mota, Christophe Moret, Bartolomeu Cahuza, Victor Domen, Nicolas Furnell, Mick Gallagher, Felix Franke, Brendan Smith, Alfredo Phillips, Tim Uchida, Stefania Olnik, Demau, David Sutherland, Roger Nelson, Oscar Jonathan Thomberg, Dan Mako, Cristalios, Carlos Rivera, Jamie Milligan, Kevin Mian, Darcy Farrar, Chris Fivey, Samuel, Natius Maximus, Arundel, Gareth Smith, Mark Atkinson, Mark Jarvis, Joe Simpson, Charles Armington, G-Force, Dr. B, Leonard Lindemann, Kieran Murthel, and Kevin Sulas. And as for me, I will catch you in the next one. Bye.